Hey girl, do you wish you could make your healthy habits stick, but life keeps getting in the way? Are you tired of diet culture telling you to shrink yourself when you'd rather just find true food freedom, move your body for joy, and feel and look good in your favorite leggings? Then you're in the right place. Think of this as Atomic Habits for women. Hey, I'm Emily Nichols, habit and fitness coach, millennial mom, and Taco Tuesday enthusiast. I'm here to tell you there is an easier way than what we've been taught about health and our habits. How do I know? Because I've gone from former chronic dieter to habit hacker through the power of the system that I'm now going to teach you so you can finally stop dieting and just train for life via your habits. Remember, it's not your fault your healthy habits haven't stuck. We just have to do them differently. Are you ready to habit hack your health? Then let's do this. You're listening to episode 237 of Habit Hack Your Health. Hey friend, I hope you are doing so amazing today. We're in February. We're in the month of love and made up Hallmark holidays like Valentine's Day, which is so funny. My husband actually proposed to me on Valentine's Day, which is so not like him, and it so threw me off. Our 20th wedding anniversary is just coming up this year, and I was just reflecting on that a bit and thinking about our lives together and how our relationship actually was super elevated back in 2015 because we started taking care of ourselves. And when we started taking care of our health, everything else really just fell into place in so many other areas of our life. Now, this didn't happen overnight. We had to start working on establishing some healthy habits that were personal and customized for us. And you know the story. As I started digging deeper into that, I started teaching group fitness. I became a behavior change specialist. And I'm going to really geek out with you today on habits, which I'm so pumped about to talk with you today, and how you can really just rewire the way your brain works when it comes to creating healthy habits and having an inside-out transformation. I truly believe my brain was rewired after I went through my own habit transformation, and it started with food freedom for me and started adding on more habits from there and learning more about habit strategy. And I think this is really important just to understand how our brains work when it comes to establishing habits, because it's going to give us a little more grace. Because as we always talk about, we as women have to do habits differently. We have a lot of automatic habits in our life, but when we want to create a new healthy habit like working out, girl, that takes brain power. You got a lot of tabs open in your head, and to open up another tab takes brain power. So today's guest is going to really help us dig deep into like your brain and getting a mind strong, and when it comes to creating healthy habits. You know, we teach this as a higher level habit strategy inside of my signature course, the Healthy Habits Accelerator pod course. And understanding this can give you, like I said, more wiggle room and grace when it comes to establishing your habits, or when life gets in your way, or a new season comes in when you're super busy, or you're just like your kids are sick for like 2 months, right? So you can grab the course at bit.ly/healthy habits pod course. This is higher level habit strategy. It includes a 21-day plan to really help you make your healthy habits stick. It includes my 4-part framework, the Atomic Habit Hacking System for Women. This really takes habit strategy to the next level, catered towards y'all. So when I was going through like my personal training certification and becoming a behavior change specialist, which pretty much means like a habit coach or a habit geek, there was a term called neuroplasticity. So this means it's like the brain's ability to change throughout your life, right? So some examples, like you learn a new language, or you learn an instrument, or you memorize like how to like just get around town, like when you move and you have to figure out how to get around town everywhere. This also counts for starting a new habit. So when you start a new habit, each time you perform the new action while you're like trying to form that habit, You really need smaller cues to trigger and activate the same network of brain cells in your mind with those automatic habits, right? Like brushing your teeth. That is an automatic habit for us. But as we're starting a new habit, we need something like cues, a trigger to help us do that. Something a little bit more intentional to help trigger those those neurons in the brain to be like, I'm starting a new habit. This is what triggers me to do it. Now, you do the habit, and on the other side, there's a reward, and that is what is going to strengthen your habits over time. And we talk about this a little bit in our episode with our guest, Rachel. But as we create these rewards, our brain is actually associating, like, this is good. This is a reward when I do this. So, for example, not hitting the snooze button every day, if that's like a healthy habit you're wanting to incorporate, it makes getting to work on time easier when you're not hitting snooze, so you feel the benefits of your new habit, right? That is the actual reward part of it. Now, later as that habit strengthens, the actual decision parts of the brain no longer need to kick in to initiate the action, right? You don't have that decision fatigue. It becomes automatic over time. It's now like activated in your memory and considered like automatic, which is what we want to get to, right? Like all the like little circuits can perform the habit without like a conscious thought. So you don't need to just choose to perform the habit anymore. It's just what you do. And hence you've created a habit loop, right? I already alluded. You had a cue, you did the routine, the reward, and over time those habit loops are automatic. Movements like that for me now, and I have these really automatic habit loops that happen now to help me move my body, but it didn't always used to be that way, and it took a lot of work for my brain to ensure that I was moving my body, and I really leaned into how amazing I felt on the other side. So how does this apply to our health? Like, to be specific, right? We have to rewire our brains to take action, like through habit strategy, habit loops, but also we need to rewire the brain the way we view dieting and health. And we have a no diet approach, health first, weight loss second, like it just happens naturally, right? Because we're training for life. In order to get MindStrong and have that inside out transformation, our guest, Rachel Freiman, is going to help us do just that. So Rachel, you guys are going to love her. She is the CEO of MindStrong Fitness. So she's a lover of lifting heavy things up and down and a coach passionate about helping others unleash their strongest, most empowered selves through education in mindset training. She's got a really cool background. She has more than 15 years of classroom instruction, certs in personal training, sports nutrition, behavior modification, and she studied under folks at Princeton University when it comes to like neuroscience. So she geeks out on habit strategy as well, just like me, and even like how your brain actually works. And she's actually the author of the best-selling book, Becoming MindStrong: The Truth About Health, Fitness, and the BS that's holding you back. So this is a really inside out approach focusing on both physical and mental attributes and building healthy, sustainable habits. So learning about how your brain works, rewiring it to make your habits work, rewiring the way we view dieting is what we're talking about today in order for you to have that inside out transformation. So get your notebook and pen handy, or take some voice notes, or take some voice notes inside your notes app. That's what I usually do when I'm listening to podcasts, because at the end I'll share my 3 biggest takeaways from this conversation with Rachel. All right, gang, let's get into it. All right, gang, thank you so much again for tuning in to Habit Hack Your Health. I am here with Rachel Freiman of MindStrong Fitness. Rachel, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Same. All right. Well, the first question I ask everyone is, what is your favorite habit hack? It could be related to fitness. It can be personal. It can be for work. It can be totally out there. I would just love to hear what your favorite habit hack is.
For sure. So mine, I think, is very unusual, especially coming from someone who works in the world of health and fitness. And it's to do the absolute bare minimum. And the thought process behind that is not laziness, but everything we do is related to flowing with human nature, right? And human nature states that we're pleasure-seeking creatures. We are designed to avoid pain and seek pleasure. So what most of us do when we're trying to build a new habit, whether it's health, fitness, snowboarding, whatever it is we wake up and we say, okay, this is it, day one, right? And we try to go hours a day, 6 days a week, major life overhaul. And our brains, which are designed for survival, are going to push back against that because to our brain, anything new equals death. And that's why most new habits last a month, 2 months, and then we self-sabotage because we're literally fighting against our human nature. But when we can feel into what is the bare minimum that I can commit to right now, and we take a baby step, again, as pleasure-seeking creatures, our bodies and our minds are going to go, holy cow, that felt fantastic. What else can I do? What else can I do? And to me, this is how we look back 6 months from now and we say, wow, like I literally did a major life overhaul, but I did it in a way where it's a snowball rolling down a hill, not pushing this boulder up a hill. So whatever the habit is, I like to do an exercise where it's a feeling exercise, not a thinking exercise. And you just simply ask yourself that, what is the bare minimum that I can commit to? You throw yourself an internal party when you stick to it and you let momentum play its role.
I think we all know that feeling too, right? When you like do something that feels really good and it feels like really accomplished for you, and that's really personal to you. And I think sometimes we try to do too much at once. And like you said, it's more about human nature and what's pleasure seeking. And a lot of times we're trying to do it all. And then we're just like, no, I'm going to do nothing because now I'm burnt out and overwhelmed and all the things. We could talk about that all day long for sure. That can be an episode in itself. So, well, you are the founder of MindStrong. I want to learn a little bit more about you, our audience, to get to know you. So can you share a little bit about your story? Like what has led you to what you do today and who you are today?
Yeah, so my background actually has nothing to do with health and fitness. I was a musician for the vast majority of my life. I was a jazz musician living in New York City and eventually decided that life was a ton of fun, but slightly less fun as you're getting into your early 30s and on. So I started teaching middle school music and I absolutely loved it. I will always consider myself a teacher at my core. But as anyone who's been around children or has children or work with children knows, it's a very it's a job that requires taking a lot of deep breaths and staying in your center. So I got into fitness just as my own release, as something to do at the end of a really long, tiring day. And it became this thing where the teacher in me was just absolutely flabbergasted by how much BS was in this industry. I was looking at point systems and shake systems. And once I actually understood, especially the nutrition piece, that this is a skill. Someone can teach you to knit, someone can teach you to surf, someone can teach you the skill of nutrition. But no one was doing that because it's the whole, give a woman to fish versus teach her to fish. If you don't know why the point system's working, you're stuck on it indefinitely. So I found myself in kind of this crossroads of, I love teaching. I didn't want to leave that career. And the world does not need another personal trainer. But I ultimately decided what the world does need is an educator in the field of health and fitness. So I started my company, MindStrong Fitness. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary, in fact, this past June, and just came into the industry doing something totally different. I always joke I have the worst sales pitch in the world because you only need me once, because what we teach women to do is how to approach nutrition as a skill. And once you understand that skill, you don't need me or anyone else. You literally never diet again. You have this skill for the rest of your life. So yeah, it's been a beautiful thing to watch it unfold. It started as my little side hustle as a teacher, became my full-time job during COVID. And now we've grown to a team of 8. I have a best-selling book. I have my own podcast, and we've just really come into this industry to do something differently, and it's working and it's beautiful.
I love that so much. And God love you for teaching middle school students. I'm always like kindergarten teacher and middle school teachers are like a special breed of people.
Kindergarten I could not do. Middle school I could do all day long.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I have boys that are 15 and 11 and whew, I see it. I see it all. I see it all. But yeah. So, and it's so funny. I talk to so many podcasters who are former teachers as well. And you're still teaching, but it's just in a different aspect now as well, which I really love. And I really love that you mentioned, Rachel, that this is something I really focus on too, as far as like habit strategy. Like, I want to teach you it and then you go do it and not need me again. You shouldn't have to keep coming back to someone to crash diet or be like, oh, I need that accountability again. Or maybe sometimes you need the accountability, but it's not, you still have the skill set. You still have the skill set, which I really love, and love that that's what you lead with, because that's something a lot of health and fitness professionals don't lead with. It's not a lot of what you see on social media, unfortunately, as well, too. So I love it. So, well, let's talk a little bit about how we're going to have an epic conversation, because you were just speaking my love language, all about, like, your book is called Becoming Strong: The Truth About Health, Fitness, and the BS That's Holding You Back. We talk all the time about the diet culture BS ingrained in our brains, and how has really this mentality kind of hindered our progress in living a consistent, healthy lifestyle, right? Why do we always keep going back to dieting?
Yeah. Oh man. So how long do you have? Because
Let's get comfortable.
here comes my TED talk. There's really two main reasons why diet culture doesn't work. The one is a bit more logistical, and the other one is more mindset based. From a logistical standpoint, every single diet, what we always like to say is we actually do an exercise with our members where we have them make a list of every single diet they've ever tried. So for some people, that's 50 diets. For some people, that's 150 diets, right? And when we understand that you haven't actually tried 150 diets, you've tried 150 versions of one diet, because every traditional diet out there is based off telling you what you quote unquote can or can't eat. In other words, it's based off restriction, right? You can't eat foods that don't have these points. You can't eat carbs. You can't eat, you name it. And when we understand human psychology, there's a term in human psychology called reactance, which simply states that as humans, we want autonomy. We want the power of choice. So the second we tell ourselves, you can't do this, it's not just the middle schoolers I used to teach. It's adults too. We want to do it 10 times more. So we're setting ourselves up for failure by trying to put our horse blinders on and saying, I can't, I can't, I can't. And then when we cave and we binge and we go down the rabbit hole, we don't just emotionally separate and say, oh, that diet didn't work for me. We say, why do I suck at this? Why do I have no willpower? Nothing's ever going to last for me. And it's really important that when we do this exercise, what we're doing is we're wiping the slate clean, because we're understanding it wasn't actually our fault, right? I'm a huge fan of radical personal responsibility, but you are literally fighting against your human nature by trying to live in a state of restriction. The other side of this is a bit more mindset, where diet culture, I'm going to consciously use the word brainwashed, has brainwashed us to believe we're either on a diet or off a diet. We're either eating clean 6 days a week, or we had a slice of pizza, so screw it, I'll start again on Monday. I'm either working out 5 days a week, or God forbid I miss a workout and now I have to start again next month. And the biggest mindset shift that we can make in our lives when it comes to our health is that I would rather you do this 75% than 100, because 100% is going to lead to burnout every day of the week. 75% means I can go out and I can house a pizza by myself if I really want to. And I don't have to wait for Monday. I don't have to wait for next month. I could say, you know what? I did it. Maybe I don't feel great right now. Maybe I regret the decision, and I get to start again, not on Monday, but right now or tomorrow. And it's this concept of you're on until you decide you're not, you are on. And that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. It doesn't mean you're not going to eat foods that don't make you feel great. But as long as you keep going, you will absolutely be successful, as long as we're doing it in a way where we're not fighting against human nature, where we're learning to eat real foods that we love while losing weight.
Yeah. And like you said, like, the more you restrict, like, the more you want it. Like, you're like, oh, I'm going to do like this 30-day like sugar detox. Right. Okay. What's your reasoning in doing that? 30 days later, you're like face first into like a gallon of ice cream, because you're like, I did it for 30 days. My reward is ice cream, which is totally backwards. Right. But that's what we're conditioned, right? There are certain good foods and bad foods, and we're good or bad depending on what we're eating, or we're good or bad because we worked out today, or we didn't work out today because we were just physically exhausted, but you were like, oh, I feel bad. And it's like, who do you feel bad to? Like, yourself? Because no one really else cares, right? It's funny. I was just looking up a statistics early, a stat earlier about diets, and it says it's $175 billion industry as recently as this year in 2023. And depending on, numbers and like men and women, but either 1/3 of dieters return to their old weight or as many as 65% do. Cause like you said, like they've tried like the same type of diet in so many different ways. And the diet industry is so big because people just want to look and feel a certain way. And I think it needs to come down to, yeah, I want to feel energetic, but I still want to have some ice cream if I want to, but not be one extreme or another. And I think it's about finding that balance of where that starts for you. And honestly, I think it starts from the inside and changing our mentality when it comes to like dieting and just seeing it as like, hey, I'm just eating and training for life to feel my best. And I know you mentioned that like our physical health is the base pyramid for living a life in alignment. And like I feel this in my soul, my bones, everything, hearing that statement. Can you expand on that a little bit more for us, Rachel?
Oh, absolutely. This is my favorite thing to talk about.
Oh yeah.
So, you alluded to this earlier about that people want to feel a certain way, right? What I always come back to is no one's wearing a t-shirt that says I lost 20 pounds or I weigh X amount of pounds, right? Everything we do in life is because we're chasing a feeling. My running joke is we're all just glorified drug addicts. We're just chasing dopamine hits. If you ask people, someone says I want to be rich and you say why? Is it because you want to log into your bank account and see a bunch of zeros? Or is it for the freedom it gives you, the security it gives you, the confidence? It's all about feelings. And it is absolutely the same with your physical health. And I'm going to take it one step further here. When we understand quantum physics, there's a governing rule of science of energy that says like energy attracts like energy. So I'm going to go off on a nerdy tangent for a second here, but in my music nerd days, there's something in the music world called a tuning fork, which is a little piece of metal. You hit it, it makes a vibration, it lets off a sound. There's different pitch tuning forks. So if you go into a room filled with tuning forks, and they're all different notes, one's A, one's B, one's C sharp. If you don't touch any tuning fork except the one that you're holding, obviously none of the other tuning forks are going to go off because they haven't been hit, except the other tuning forks that are tuned to the same pitch as the one that you're holding, those are going to sound without being touched. And that's because in quantum physics, there's a rule that says like attracts like energetically. So when we apply that to humans and we understand that science has shown that atoms, the building block of everything in the world, is made up of 99.999% energy, we can understand that us as humans, we are literally vibrating energy. So when people talk about, the power of positive thinking and manifestation, it tends to get written off as this like woo-woo rainbow and glitter thing, but it's really science. So if we understand that A, we're made of energy, and B, the rule of energy is that like attracts like, we can understand what that actually means is the energy we're putting out into the world is completely aligned with what we're attracting back. Now, I like to think of this as a pyramid, as you mentioned. At the base of this pyramid has to be your physical health, right? To me, it goes physical health, mindset, life, and alignment. Because if you are walking around and you are shrunken down in your skin and you're constantly grabbing at your belt loop and you're saying, oh, I sniffed pizza last night, I feel like I gained 5 pounds. What kind of energy are you putting out into the world? And as a result, what are you attracting back? And when you start taking care of your health, it's not about the weight you lose. It's not about what the scale says. It's about how you feel in your skin and that confidence. And when you're walking around with that energy unleashed like that, it's no coincidence that, people go through our program, come back and they're like, I just got the job of my dreams. I just attracted my dream partner. I just left an unhealthy relationship. And we're like, of course you did, because you cannot exist in a world where your energy doesn't match. So as you're elevating, the rest of your life is going to transform along with it. And to me, that's what this is about. It's not like the weight loss is math and science. That'll happen. That's a given.
Yeah.
To me, it's about raising your energy because that's how you're going to attract back this life of your dreams.
Gosh, I think why I feel this so much is when I really started taking care of myself, and it really started on a journey like my husband and I back in 2015, everything changed for us. Like our relationship was stronger, like our relationship with our kids. Like I feel like I attracted more like-minded friends in my life. Like I was able to like just feel more positive about a lot of things that might have stressed me out before. And I see that too with folks that I coach, like even just folks coming to classes that I teach. I can see like just the way they carry themselves. You know what I mean? You can feel and like see them changing, not just physically, you can feel the way they are feeling. And that's because they're just taking care of yourselves. And you're exactly right. If you don't have that base of that pyramid, we call it just our fundamental needs, everything will crumble. Everything else will crumble if you don't have that big base of support. And it's true. And it doesn't have to be extreme, right? It doesn't have to be like, okay, well, I'm going to like work out for 2 hours a day and like meditate for a half an hour and like, meal prep for like 10 hours. It has to be so much more simple, right? So we chat a ton about habit strategy here, obviously, and we tend to have just that all or nothing attitude. And kind of like what you mentioned at the beginning, Rachel, big believer in doing the bare minimum. We talk about a lot about like the 1% rule, just getting 1% better, just doing 1% more every day, and how that's a lot more attainable. What is your opinion on, and what is your suggestion for how we can do the bare minimum, still feel successful in order to make our habits stick?
Yeah, I love this question. So this goes back to the joke I made earlier about we're all just glorified dopamine drug addicts, right? So the exercise that we do around doing the bare minimum, as I mentioned, it's a feeling exercise, not a thinking exercise. So we'll do this in our community where, we sit up nice and tall, we close our eyes and we take a deep breath and we just plant the seed of what is the bare minimum that I can commit to this week. So let's say the immediate thought that comes to your mind is I can go for a 20-minute walk 2 days a week. What's going to happen immediately is that inner monologue is going to kick in and start telling you why that's not enough, right? What am I going to accomplish? I should also stop eating carbs and I should work out for 6 hours and I should never go to McDonald's again. And you're going to get that voice to be quiet because in this exercise, being an overachiever is ruining the exercise. So again, when you hit it because it's going to feel soft. The second you start to feel tension, that's your inner monologue speaking. So when you feel that thing, that's your bare minimum you're going to commit to. Now, the key to this being successful is, again, this comes down to neuroscience. You go for your first 20-minute walk of the week. When you're done, you're going to throw yourself a freaking internal party. Like badass, good. Like you said you were going to do this. You didn't feel like it. You did it. I am so proud of you. And when that inner monologue starts kicking in, which it will, to tell you why it's not that big a deal, you're going to quiet it down and you're going to continue celebrating yourself. And again, the reason is not rainbows and glitter and unicorns. Because what's happening in that moment is your brain is releasing a drug called dopamine. And that's what our body is craving in every decision of life. So 3 days later, when you don't want to go for that second walk, now your brain has proof of, wait a second, remember the other day when I didn't feel like doing this, how good it felt afterwards? I bet if I do it again, I'm going to get that same little hit. And because we're pleasure-seeking creatures, we don't have to force this. You're not going to do 2 20-minute walks for the rest of your life. At some point, you're going to naturally be like, you know what? These walks are so simple now. They're just who I am and what I do. I wonder what would happen if I make it a 30-minute walk. I add a third day in. I add 1 day of weight training. Like this becomes such a snowball down a hill when we let it. It doesn't work when we try to do this major life overhaul, pushing a boulder up. But it's this feeling into the bare minimum. And most importantly, it's that internal party for the dopamine release.
Hey girl, real quick, do you have a habit hacking question for me? Like, what healthy habit should you start with? Advice on creating your own habit loops? What is the Atomic Habits for Women philosophy? Or maybe you have a specific question about your food freedom, mindset, or movement habits? I got you. Go to bit.ly/habit hacking question. It's also linked in the show notes for you, and record a message to me with your question. If I select your question, I'll answer it live on the podcast for you, and I'll send you a habit tracker for doing so. Looking forward to hearing from you. Now let's get back to the show. I think that's so important. Like when you do a habit loop, you have a cue, routine, reward. We teach a ton on habit loops, and the reward's the hardest part. Every single time it's like, oh, well, should I go like buy myself something? I'm like, no, like my favorite reward ever is if I do like a little mini meal prep. Like if I just make chicken the night before, like extra to have for the next day, I'm always like, thank you, Emily from the past. Like you saved my butt today. I'm always like, thank you me from the past. And it makes me smile every time I say it out loud to myself. My dog's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, I'm talking to myself. But like, seriously, like you said, an inner like monologue, a party, you're going to feel silly doing it. You're going to have like that voice trying to make it small and not a big deal. But it is a big deal. Like you should feel accomplished and proud of yourself. And like you said, then that's when it starts triggering in your mind and you start craving it more because you're like, remember how good I felt when I did it? Because you're not going to be motivated. Like, trust, you're not going to be motivated every single day, every single minute. I'm definitely not. And I'm sure you're not all the time either. Right. So having that reward in mind and really digging deep and even write it down if you need to like physically see like, oh, look how good I feel. I think that's so important. And for me, when I think of like MindStrong, that's what I think of. That's what comes to mind for me. Like, wow, I am training my brain to do hard things, which for some, they're like, why is taking a walk really hard? Well, it can be a really hard thing for some folks because we are so overstressed and it feels like one more thing to do. But seeing it as, okay, I'm training my brain that this is actually going to give me more energy. It's going to give me more time back because I'm not going to crash later. I'm going to feel so energetic and so good. So I want to know maybe what your definition of Mind Strong is.
Yes, for sure. First of all, I want to say I love the thanking your past and future self. I think social media is a great place to celebrate yourself in that way. I will constantly post like, don't want to do this right now. Here you go, future Rachel, or like thanking past Rachel for so and so. Like it's such a beautiful reminder that we're doing this for us, but there's different versions of us. So I just want to say out loud how much I love that you just said that. To answer your question, so MindStrong comes from two different places. Number one is the education piece, right? There is a power in education. The things in life that tend to scare us, that tend to overwhelm us, are because we don't understand them. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this conversation, I came into this industry as a teacher to do something different, to educate. And what we hear from most of our members is, where was this 20 years ago? How come nobody's been teaching this my entire life? Because the second that you have the education behind it, it no longer has power over you. And especially for a topic like nutrition, that for most women is so overwhelming and so confusing, when that suddenly becomes the thing in their life that's an anchor, what a 180, where it's like, well, my life feels out of control right now, but I know I can control my nutrition. It's like, you got it. Like light bulb has gone off. You have been educated. It no longer has power over you. The second part of MindStrong, I am a huge neuroscience nerd. Like neuroscience is my jam. And again, it ties hand in hand with the education piece, that a lot of times when people talk about mindset training, it sounds very like, inspirational memes on Instagram and standing in front of the mirror, beating your chest, saying, I am woman, hear me roar. But when we understand the neuroscience of habits, that every time we think a new thought or take a new action, there's a neural connection that forms in your brain. You can go on, in the nerdiest way possible, you can go on YouTube and watch this happen. It's the coolest thing. So a neural connection forms. And then every time you repeat that thought or action, there's this stuff called myelin that acts like cement, and it coats the neural connection. And with enough coating, that's how we form habits. And for me, when we talk about mindset, when we talk about habit training, when we talk about training that inner dialogue to be your best coach instead of a raging jerk, it's not about woo-woo, pump me up, power of positive thinking, I should say this, I shouldn't say this. It's, oh, this is just neuroscience. So if I've spent years telling myself I lack willpower, and all of a sudden I can say to myself, you know what? I'm learning a new skill, and this is going to take time and practice, and it's math and science, and it works. When you flip those scripts and you keep repeating them, it's not a question of if you're going to form a new habit. It's a matter of, how do I stay consistent enough? Because if I stay consistent, when I stay consistent, I have to form a habit. It's neuroscience. It's how the human brain works. So the combination of education and then mindset from a neuroscience perspective, MindStrong just seemed like the perfect symbol of exactly what we do and what we stand for and what this industry needs.
I love that so much. I'm always like facts over feelings sometimes when it comes to habits and habit strategy and what we think we can or can't do. And it's kind of sitting back and being like, okay, well, here's the facts. Here's like science when it comes to forming habits. Here's what you believed. How can we flip that script and just say like, oh, well, I just need to do this instead of ABC, and give yourself time, which I know is hard, but like you said, watch it snowball from there. Just watch it snowball from there. I love that so much.
We always say, you are a unique, sparkly snowflake, and no one is like you, and you don't defy the laws of math and science. So when you stay consistent, it will work.
That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh. I could talk to you forever. I could geek out on habit strategy all day long. I'm like, give me all the habit, I'll have
Right?
it though. Like I love it so much. And obviously you do too. But where can everyone connect with you, find out more, listen to your podcast, get your book, all the things?
Absolutely. So the easiest place to connect is our website, mindstrongfitness.com. I also have my podcast is called Becoming MindStrong. My book is on Amazon called Becoming MindStrong, the truth about health, fitness, and the BS that's holding you back. And my Instagram is at Get MindStrong.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes for everyone as usual. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for this conversation. I appreciate
Oh,
you.
thank you. So great chatting with you.
Rachel, I could geek out on habits with you all day, my friend. Thank you so much for this conversation. I learned a lot talking with you the first time, listening back to it, and I know, dear listener, you have probably learned a lot as well. Now, if you've been driving or got distracted because you needed to get your kid a snack, let's go over my 3 biggest takeaways from this conversation with Rachel Freiman from MindStrong. Number 1, okay, I'm just going to be real. Diet culture has really just brainwashed us totally, like big time, right? And like Rachel said, it's like we're either on a diet or we're off a diet. And girl, that is just no way to live. I would rather live in that state of food freedom, which we really, really want to personalize and get to for you, right? With an idea of eating healthy, but not restricting yourself. Because all diets are essentially about restriction, right? You can't do this or you can't have that. Well, the more you restrict, you know what happens? The more you want it, right? I'm not a big fan of cheat days because I'm like, I'm not cheating. I'm just still living my life, right? But however, we really feel like we're either supposed to have something or we're not. It's good or bad, or we're good or bad, depending on what we are eating, or because we didn't work out this week because we've been really tired, or you were sick, or your kid was sick. And then you get back on track, right? Then you burn out again. Then life happens. It's such a vicious cycle. And what really happens is we blame ourselves. But you're fighting against your human nature, right? Like Rachel said, human nature is like, I need to fuel my body. And you're literally fighting against human nature when you're restricting yourself. So let's just forget about dieting. Let's just live our life. My next biggest takeaway kind of takes this into action. So how do we take action? Like if we're not doing like that all or nothing, how can we kind of meet in the middle? And like Rachel said, how about we do the bare minimum? And like she said, this is a feeling exercise versus a thinking exercise, because we as busy working millennial moms, a lot of times we have that all or nothing mentality when it comes to diet and creating new habits. But doing the bare minimum is going to help you, like I said earlier, create a smaller cue in your mind to start creating these healthier habits. And it's more about how it feels versus thinking in your mind where your inner monologue, like Rachel said, is telling you, girl, this isn't enough just doing like 5 push-ups a day. Like this is not enough just like eating healthy and being able to have like a cookie if I want it, right? But I love this. So what if you just did, like Rachel mentioned, 75% instead of 100%? That is way more sustainable. You are not going to burn out. When life gets in the way, you're not going to blame yourself. The weight loss will happen just because of basic math, right? It happened to me. It happens to my clients. When we are just taking care of our health, then you start feeling good in your leggings. And like I mentioned, I had my own inside out transformation. Like my relationship with my husband elevated. My success at work elevated. And it really was the energy I was putting out, like Rachel mentioned, was what I was getting back in life. And when you're taking care of yourself and just your basic fundamental needs, like you are elevated. But we don't have to do it all. What if you just did the bare minimum and see how that feels? Don't think about it, but see how that feels. You're going to build so much more momentum and confidence in yourself because you're not going to burn out. And then lastly, when you're doing like that bare minimum habit. Maybe it's like, I'm just doing 5 push-ups every day, which you're like, Emily, that's so insignificant. But I'm like, well, what are you doing now, girl? Like, seriously, what are you doing now? I want you to celebrate it. Like, silence that inner monologue. Like we kind of mentioned, when you're creating a new habit, the reward on the other side, your brain is triggering into you that this feels good, right? Like Rachel said, we're dopamine addicts, right? That's why, like, after you work out consistently, you crave it more because you lean into the feeling on the other side. You're like, I feel dang good. Your brain has proof that this feels good. And the more you do it, the more your brain just rewires you to be like, I'm going to do it because I feel really great. This will help you when you're not motivated, okay? Because you're not going to be motivated every day. I've been talking a lot about this week in my live classes that I teach at Orange Theory. At the end of class, I'm like, how do you feel? And some people are like, oh my gosh, I feel terrible. And then once we go through like flexibility and mobility, they're like, I feel really good. I feel really great. And that just carries with you throughout the rest of the day. And I always tell them, lean into this feeling. Because the mornings where you wake up and you're like, oh, I just don't feel like going, more than likely that can become a habit itself. But if you lean into like how awesome you feel on the other side, eventually that will become automatic and your motivation doesn't have to be there because you'll just do it because it's an automatic habit. Now, how long does this take? Oh, it could take up to 21 days. Maybe you need a reward cycle. Inside of our pod course, we actually take you through a 21-day reward cycle to help you keep elevating and sustaining those habits week by week. So over 3 weeks, since it's 21 days, to keep that reward cycle going and really digging in deeper to it. Oh my gosh, Rachel, I love this episode so much. You are so smart and it's so simple, friends. We got to just rewire our brains. It's science, right? We're just going to rewire our brains. So friend, I hope this helps you feel a little bit more enlightened as far as like how your brain works with creating habits and realizing it's not your fault your habits haven't stuck. We just need to do them a little bit differently. We need basic habit strategies. Like Rachel mentioned, higher level habit strategies catered towards you in that Atomic Habits for Women philosophy that I teach. And I'm so glad we were able to have this conversation today. And I hope your eyes are open. I know mine are even more as well. So we'll make sure to include all of the links to Rachel, connect with her on Instagram, grab her book, and become MindStrong with her. Now, we did mention in this episode a little bit about habit loops. This is like the juiciest habit strategy, my favorite habit hack ever. And if you want to learn about how to create your own habit loops, you can grab the Healthy Habits cheat sheet at bit.ly/Healthy Habits cheat sheet. It's linked in the show notes too, to learn more about the formula to create a cue, routine, reward. But also I give you 60 suggestions for some habits around your food freedom mindset and movement. Okay, friend? So I hope that's helpful for you to help you take action. Habit loops are what help you take action. And like Rachel mentioned, sometimes we need to really have a little bit more leaning into our feelings versus what our brains are telling us sometimes. Like, I'm not motivated. I don't want to do it. But the more you do it and get rid of that inner monologue, the more you'll lean into that reward cycle. Those habits will become intuitive, and before you know it, you're feeling good in your leggings. I love this so much. Rachel, thank you again so much for this conversation. Friends, I will see you later this week for Habit Hack Thursday. Hey girl, real quick before you go, did you know I have a secret podcast where I talk all about why most habit strategies don't work for us women? Spoiler alert, it's not our fault. Visit bit.ly/Atomic Habits for Women. It's linked in the show notes to access my secret podcast series and have your biggest aha moment about why and how women have to do habits differently. And if you love the podcast, the number one way you can thank me is to leave a rating and review in iTunes. That way more mamas can find the show. Love and appreciate you, friend. We'll see you next time.